Tom's joined us. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Tom Johnson. I'm the Deputy CEO of Council of Homeless Persons. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm joining from the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that land was never ceded. And thank you for joining us for Ask Me Anything webinar with our fantastic lived experience advisors here at CHP. And I'll hand you over to Lucas Testro, who will facilitate this fantastic conversation. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Tom. And welcome everybody. Welcome to our second webinar for Homelessness Week. This one is the Lived Experience Hotline. As Tom said, I'm Lucas Testro. I'm the Manager of Storytelling and Engagement at Council to Homeless Persons. And today we're super lucky to have with us, at the moment it's 3 very talented individuals. We might have a 4th joining us in a moment. They're all graduates of CHP's Peer Education Support Program and have gone on to be advocates and advisors in all sorts of roles across the homelessness space, as well as continuing to work with us here at CHP. And here today, they're joining us to answer your questions, drawing on their past lived experience of homelessness. So I'm really excited to welcome them now. We'll start with Jody, maybe. Hi, Jody. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to come along today.
We're really looking forward to the conversation. And we've got Jase. G'day, Jase.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the chat.
Awesome. And Christine. Hi, Christine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, very interested to see what comes out today in this discussion.
Yeah, so we asked you in the week leading up to the event to send through questions for us. I have them here. I have a lot of questions that have been sent in to ask. But if you're feeling inspired by the discussion and you want to ask a question during the session, we'll try to make time for that too. If you do have a question, please put it in the chat. That's the way we're going to be taking questions live for this session, through the chat. This webinar is also being recorded, and we'll share that on CHP's YouTube page and social media later in the week. So with that said, team, shall we jump into it? I might take the liberty, since I have a mic right now, to ask a question of my own to kick us off. And what I'd really love to hear is from each of you what you think, what's the #1 most misunderstood thing about homelessness? So the thing that people either don't understand, or something maybe they think is a fact, but it's actually wrong. Anyone like to kick us off with that one? Jody.
I think I'll jump in to start with. And I feel like most of us know what it's like to have a full-time job, raise a family, and have a full life. But I feel that one of the biggest misconceptions is that people experiencing a time in their life without a home, that they have nothing to do. It certainly, in my experience, was the most busiest time of my life, and it's a 24/7 job. It never slows down, and to find all the resources and connect all the dots every single day to do all of those routine activities is extremely time consuming and overwhelming and exhausting.
Yeah, great. There's a lot of stuff there I think we can come back to and have a chat about later. Thanks, Jody. Christine.
Yeah, for me, it's like, although it's becoming a little bit more known today, but that you are unemployed, that's why you became homeless, is that you had no employment. That is certainly not the case. And there are many people that are employed that still can't find anywhere to live or call a home. And that was certainly the case for me. So that's a pretty big misconception as far as I'm concerned.
Jase, do you have anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I've been working with the homeless for like 20+ years in one form or another. And no matter what's in place, good or bad ideas, it always seems to be undermined by this stigma. It's no matter how good an idea, if it's just going to be shot down by people's fears or what they don't understand, there's really no point moving forward. So, yeah, the power of the stigma, how it doesn't like have an immediate effect per se, but it does have a powerful one.
Yeah, and they're all issues that people have asked other questions about. So I'm looking forward to coming back to dig into all those as we go. Maybe we'll start by sort of touching on, Jody, what you were talking about there about the amount of work and accessing. Because we have a question from Emma who asks, when you first became homeless, did you know what organisations and resources were available to help you, and how easily accessible was that kind of information?
No, through my experience, it took an enormous amount of time to initially come into contact with a homeless service per se. I had so many other touch points within community-based physical, mental health that were not aware of or not able to do soft referrals. Doesn't matter what the reason was. There was so much that I was doing in the community, but no one knew to share that information with me. I believe that as a team, we've worked really hard with Ask Izzy and a range of other options to try and connect those dots. But I think the number one leader in sharing that information is still peer-to-peer for other people who are experiencing homelessness that share that information with someone else. And a sad statistic, I feel, but it is real.
So you think that's still the case today, is peer-to-peer is the main way to find out that sort of information?
Yes, definitely.
Anyone else have any thoughts about that one?
That brings me to the point where, because you have mental health problems, there's a lot of advertising out there of where you can go if you've got mental health problems. Why is there no advertising or given community space, knowledge to address what happens when you find yourself without a home? Certainly on my point, I did not have a clue either. I had no idea. I didn't even think I was homeless in the first place. That's talking about stigma. But I had no idea where to go or who to talk to. And I think that's largely because the knowledge just isn't out there in the community, and that needs to be solved.
So what was your sort of first step that put you on that path to find somebody to talk to, Christine? I
never did find anybody to talk to. I did not end up accessing services myself. It just, I was just lucky enough to find myself in a situation where a family member purchased a house that we could afford to rent. So we're now renting that property, and was fortunate enough to be able to move in with my mum so we could both share the rent burden, which has been very fortunate and quite lucky.
Jase, what do you reckon?
On that note, sorry, just to say, I did find information 2 or 3 years after I'd been in my home. I found a little doorway somewhere in Sunshine where I live. In that doorway, there was all the information that I would have liked to have had when I was without a home. It was there, but to find that place was just luck. Sorry, Jason.
No need to apologise. Yeah, I pride myself on knowledge and trades and skill sets, but why would I look up homelessness? I've never, before I became homeless, I never entered my life. I, like everybody else, you say homeless to some person sitting on a corner, in the street. That was the extent of my skill set, understanding homeless. And it isn't that, well, as we all know now, there are so many layers to this conundrum of homelessness. Is when it's taken away from you, you think, wow, what do I do now? Because you've never experienced that threat before. Why would you know? Where do you go? Do I get help from my Indigenous people? Do I get help from... But, you are crushed with embarrassment. And that plays into you even looking for help. Oh, wow, if I look, someone will look at me and they'll see me on how broken I am. Again, fueled by this stigma. One way or another, it affects, because everyone assumes they know something. You know a fire truck is red, but you know how it's built. Well, no. I know a clock tells the time, but I couldn't fix one. So why would I know about homelessness when it's never affected me before it did? So yeah, tough one.
Sonia asks in the chat for Jody was talking about learning sort of peer-to-peer conversations to find out next steps and how to move forward. How did you go about finding the peers that could help you?
Blind luck.
Luck. Sorry, Jase.
Sorry, Jody. Yeah, I was playing luck. Pure and simple. Yeah, it was like I sat down with somebody who just happened to be a first responder who had some insight on, hey, dude, I found it really hard to find somewhere at first. I went, oh, wow, I could sort of connect. Luck, mate. It was blind luck in my circumstances.
In my reality, I would have loved more, but looking forward, what could be done better, and it has been proven in the mental health sector as a really, really strong mechanism, is having within service organisations, having peer leaders in there. And welcome, Joal. I think I'm going to throw you in the deep end. Joal is one of our famous team members who actually has had a peer role. Joal, we're just talking about how peer-to-peer learning from peers is one of the biggest ways of finding out how to use this homeless service system. So can we throw it over to you on how well it worked for you?
Sure. So I guess being a peer support worker in the system, I not only did I have peers myself, you guys, people who I know who have been through the system themselves, but I was able to learn from the people that I supported. So if I go off stories from those guys, it was usually through word of mouth and through stories and information that people would share with each other about how they got to learn about the system. You don't know what you don't know. So it's usually word of mouth and info that people share with each other. And even me as a teenager, I didn't even know I was homeless. I didn't know I was experiencing homelessness until other people that lived in the crisis that come with me were like, yeah, we're like homeless kids. I'm like, what? We're not homeless? Like, what do you mean? But yeah, it was just that sharing stories and sharing information, and yeah, going by what your peers know is how you get to know about the system, because otherwise, how do you know?
Thanks, Joel. Can I just pick up on something you said there? I think Christine said something similar earlier about when you said you didn't know you were homeless. Can you talk a bit more about that kind of thought process, or what your understanding of, that led to you kind of thinking that?
Yeah, I guess if I reflect back, I had no idea. Like, I had no idea I was experiencing homelessness. I just didn't have that language. I didn't know. I think, especially as a teen, that's my personal story as a teen. I didn't realize, I just thought, oh, my family's just going through stuff, like our family's just going through stuff. Like, my mom just lost the house. I don't live with my family anymore. Like, my family's just going through a lot of stuff. Like, I didn't have the language that, I was actually going through a service system, and I didn't even realize that what was happening, that my mom had a worker, I had a worker, but I didn't realize we were going through a system as such. I think especially as teens and youth going through the system, you just have no idea. Like, no one sits you down to say, hey, so you're experiencing homelessness, so like, how would you like to be supported through this? You don't have those type of conversations. So yeah, I didn't know.
And picking up on what you were just saying, that last bit, no one sits you down and saying, so how would you like to be supported? That lack of awareness, what we're talking about there is not just an issue of awareness of what to do to get help when you're there, but awareness of actually the experience of homelessness, that first step.
Yeah.
is lacking that awareness, or would having that awareness help you change how you could access support?
Yes,
the
because
speed of your
definitely, because you don't know what to ask for. You just don't know what to ask for, so you don't know what kind of support you need as well. You don't know what the service can offer you. I remember when I worked as a peer support worker and doing intake with the intake worker, just shadowing, people would come in, people would be in such a state of fight or flight and in survival mode, not knowing, people didn't know where they were going to sleep the next night. So we're giving them, all this information about the service and stuff, and would ask, so, what do you think you'd need from us? And they're like, we don't know. Like, everyone would say one after another, I don't know what I need. Can you just tell me again what you just said? Can you just tell me again what this service does? Because your brain, in that emotional state cannot take in information, and you don't know what you need, and you don't know what the service system can offer you. So reiterating, like, I would make sure I'd reiterate, in the next couple of days, come up to people and say, give them, a pamphlet about the service, or say, so this is what we do. Just a reminder, we've got this, this, and this. You can ask us about this. We can help you with this. But yeah, as a consumer going through the service system, you actually don't know what you need. And you don't know what services can provide.
Yeah.
You don't know what to ask for. But I think Christine had her hand up.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about how you felt that you didn't know you were homeless. That was the same case for me and for my mother, who had been homeless for 2.5 years. That we just didn't fit that stigmatized version of being homeless as a rough sleeper. So we didn't identify as being homeless because that's the only homeless population that was viewed out in the media. So we just didn't identify as being homeless because we weren't sleeping rough. And that because you don't identify as being homeless, it stops you from even looking for services in the first place, because you're not aware that you are actually, by definition, homeless. So, yeah. And I think that talks to a bit about Jason's discussion around stigma.
I think Christine's onto something there. I was just, a lot of the organisations that do provide services to the homeless would not necessarily have that in their descriptor, and whether it be the Salvos or whether it be Vinnies or whether, some outlets actually offer food services, some might offer housing services. But the way that most businesses here in Australia promote themselves, they go, and we do this, and we do that, and we do this. But most of these organisations have a name that doesn't describe what they do. And unless, you're looking at it, you don't, like Joel's saying, you don't know what to ask for. You don't come in and go, do you offer this, do you offer counselling? Do you offer drug and alcohol? Do you, unless that's really well promoted or advertised in those waiting rooms, you wouldn't know, but you wouldn't necessarily go to their waiting room if, and I'm trying not to name drop, but, with some organisations, you wouldn't associate that potentially with needing help to find some medication or funding for medication, or do you know what I mean? Like it is all those hoops and boundaries that that name or banner doesn't give the user to know to go and ask for it.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about stigma. We've got a couple of questions about that. So one from Kevin in the chat. Jason, you spoke of stigma being a barrier. How is that stigma expressed? Or I'll throw it out to anyone else on that panel. How do you kind of experience that from the rest of society in words or actions?
Oh, sorry, my bad. My speaker wasn't on.
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, like when I entered homelessness, it was 30 years ago, and it was a different world then. It was just something that's happened to somebody. And with the stigma, it fuels, you got to remember, it fuels every thought before you take action. You know, that because you go by what everyone else is talking about. If you don't know, you don't know. But one of the most frustrating questions, as innocently intended as it was, oh, how can we help? I don't know, how can you help? You know, it's the doubt that fuels, you know, the thought before the action. So if there's stigma and you don't understand what's going on, you just and it plays into everything. You know, stigma is in the, you know, it's in the grey matter that, you know, thinking about something, then acting on it. It's stigma will always guide your actions, no matter how well intended you are. You know, because if you don't know something, or if you're told by others, well, if you I don't know, for example, me, a firefighter and a homeless, well, how does that happen? Well, no, how does it happen? It will happen. But I wouldn't have reached out to my brethren at the fire department, you know, my family. I would have, my actions would have taken a different route if there was talk around the kitchen table about, hey, you know, sometimes people become homeless and it's not drugged, it's not legal, it's a trauma. Anything could happen, you know, one small hiccup. And you move fast forward today where it's pretty much everywhere. You know, that's why I think John moved to changing homelessness to people without a home. So this got beat to death by the media. So there's sort of like under-information and over-information. Because you got to remember, when you enter this arena of asking for help, it's tough. You know, it was tough for me, and I consider myself a tough guy. But can you imagine a young family going through this, or a mother asking the questions, "Oh, mummy, why are we sleeping in the car again?" You see the depths of, you know, the overwhelming power that not knowing something dictates your actions or the choices you're going to make. So that's why I believe stigma is such a powerful enemy when it comes to trying to get back into home situation, or, you know, having family on a wraparound service. These are things you don't entertain when you're ashamed to even ask for it. So that's why I believe stigma does what it does so devastatingly well.
Can I jump in, Jason?
Yeah, sure, Bob.
I reckon stigma, what can be done about it, like if I just, you know, take your lead, Jason, speak about homelessness. Like you said, there was no chats around, tables about, you know, what are you going through? What are you going through? You know, they say what, we're 2 weeks, we're 2 paychecks away from experiencing homelessness. So what can be done about it is have more chats about, be more real with each other about, like,
Yeah.
with your own community, with people around you, with your family. Speak about more, like, be more genuine with each other about what's going on in life. You know, I feel like if homelessness can happen to anybody, if we're speaking to each other and being more genuine with each other about really what's going on in life and the hardships we're facing, instead of trying to hide it, because I tried to hide everything I went through. I didn't tell anyone that I was going through anything. You know, I would still go to school, and you know, the teachers didn't know that I was, you know, going through homelessness. No one knew anything, so no one could support me, you know. So if no one can, yeah. And it was about the stigma. It was about the stigma. And even if it was the shame, because you don't want to be seen as like a failure in life as well, especially as I got older, as a young mum. It's like, you can't tell someone that because you're a failure, like a personal failure. I think the system's really good at telling us as consumers that we're at fault for our circumstances, where it's actually a system that didn't catch us when we fell. You know, where like a set of circumstances happened where we ended up without a roof over our head, but the system loves to tell us that that's our fault. But yeah, it's, what can we do about it is see people as real people, that, you know, shit happens in life, and you know, things are gonna happen. It's not always gonna be perfect, and yeah, allow people to be themselves so they can have these conversations and not feel like they're a personal failure and can't come to your sister or your mom or your friend and be like, this is the real deal, what's going on with me. Because yeah, the judgment, that's what stigma is. It's the judgment. And it's you know, through going through the homelessness system, you lose so many parts of yourself. You lose your identity and you lose yeah, you lose who you are. It strips you of your identity. So I think that, yeah, if we could just be more real with each other in everyday life and have these real conversations, then maybe we won't lose so much of our dignity when we're going through hard times, you know? Jody, what do you think?
Yeah, and I'm thinking along the extension that it does, and you've explained it really well, how hard it is to get to that point where we admit to ourselves that we are without a home and that we potentially are failing at certain things in our personal life. That is gut wrenching. And I think as an extension, then we make ourselves vulnerable, go, okay, we are having a hard time, we are homeless. Let's go to these services and ask help. And I think the word judgment that you use, we then go into some of the service systems that have eligibility criteria, and that's when the judgment comes in, and you sort of either meet the criteria or not. We can't service you. You're not in this cohort. You're not in the right area. All this level of rejection then comes into that. But I think, so, you know, we all have our own stories of how we potentially lost our identity and were labelled with, you look too young to be a veteran. You don't look homeless. You know, there are so many castaway comments that were made, and, you know, you're not actually really eligible for our service. I'm not sure what you're doing here. And I think that compounds. So, yeah, Joelle's right. Getting there, and Jason as well, getting there and admitting to ourselves that we need help is just monumental step. Like, that's really tough. But then once we do put our hands up and go out to the service system, we're not always welcomed because we don't meet the black and white government funding arrangement to walk through that door. And I think there has been significant change with orange doors and hubs and things like that. But that level of stigma to walk through that door is still very real today.
Oh, hell yeah. You know, when I experienced this, or what put me in the right mindset was, I'm going to say something shocking right now. Have everyone prepared. Back in my day, smartphones weren't that smart. And there was no such thing as social media or any platform. So, and look how difficult it is today, even though we've got all these amazing tools at our disposal, still how brutally hard it is to talk about, even solve this problem. Talk about it is tough. And, you know, I don't want to keep beating on about stigma. But it's the action, it's the thought before anything else happens. You know, any back and forth from the outside world, it guides what you do from the word go. And that's why I believe this generational thing, now we've got families living in cars, it's going to be tougher because now these kids, I believe, are self-imposing stigma because they believe, well, mum and dad lived in a car, so it must be cool. It's okay. But we all know that is right. So,
I
yeah.
think it's, you know, fantastic, like what you're sort of bringing to the surface here. I think a large part of this is about changing that understanding in general discussion that homelessness is a failure of systems, not a failure of people. But so on that point, I want to come back to something that you said at the start, Jody, because I think we probably have all met that person who says, you know, about somebody experiencing homelessness, you know, they're not just not trying hard enough, or they don't want to work or something. And the thing that has maybe struck me most when hearing your stories is the amount of sheer determination and effort that somebody experiencing homelessness needs to go through to stay engaged with a system that can sometimes feel like it's trying to push them out. I was wondering, Jody, do you want to talk a little bit more about that kind of notion? You've talked to me before about, you know, kind of juggling an appointment you have to be at on the other side of the city from where you're staying, and kind of consequences if you can't meet those, that sort of thing.
And I think as a precursor to all of this, we don't necessarily want to share our experience with people who know us or have known us pre being without a home. So I think that's where that peer space comes back in. If we're able to bounce off or share with other people that are going through the same experience, that are too overwhelmed to speak those words to someone like a family member, we then can really start to make some progress. And from this team and working with this team and sharing my life with this team for such a long time, they have given me such strength and resilience, because even though we might all go through a bit of a slow-mo week or month or year, the others around us are still there to catch us, and we can see them having a great week or a great month or a great year, and it inspires us. And we know that their stories are all different, but we know from their examples that if we keep plodding along, we can get somewhere. And we also understand from their stories that sometimes it took forever for that to happen. So it's okay. It's not about you. It's not because you're doing something wrong. It's purely because we're just waiting for things to happen. And unfortunately, in an under-resourced system, we have to wait for stuff, whether we're waiting for a hospital bed in a mental health ward, whether we're waiting for on a wait list for drug and alcohol, whether on a wait list for dental services. There are wait lists to every single thing we're trying to achieve, and housing is no different. So we're not failing, the system's failing, and all of these voices around me are telling me, don't let those monsters tell you you're doing a bad job. Just breathe and sit with me until that time comes for you. And it's a hard ask, really hard ask, to not have a definite timeline on when your life's going to feel better. I'll throw it out to some other people. I'm getting a bit deep and meaningful, sorry.
Well, maybe I'll throw another question that can lighten it slightly. Claire asks for you all, how do you maintain your enthusiasm for the incredible advocacy work that you're all continuing to do year after year?
I'll answer this one, I'll go. And then Chris, sorry, I know you're about to go. Enthusiasm. So I think we all feel like this, like as Jody said, like we've had each other for, nearly 10 years, and it's having each other. I think, as as mentors, and as I don't know what the word is, I can't think of the word, but it's sort of like you said, Joe, it's like a goalpost of everything's going to be okay, because I've heard that story and that story and that story, and I know I'll be okay one day. And our enthusiasm comes from the support we get from each other, the mentorship we get from each other, and also knowing that all the shit that we went through isn't for nothing. If we can, in our own little way, make the system somewhat better for someone currently going through it, then all the stuff we went through wasn't for nothing.
Christine, what keeps you enthusiastic?
Pretty much what Joel just said, actually. I think the support with the peers is great. It's like we're comrades in arms, and having the supervisory support from the Council to Homeless Persons is important as well. But also getting feedback and having that loop fed back to you, what your outcome was when you go out and do something. What did you achieve? And it's those little bits of achievements that you've changed somebody's ideas or perceptions, that you've broadened somebody's perspectives on how their service should be run, that you write a piece of work and it gets published. It's those small things that keeps you going, that feedback that what you're doing is actually changing something. It might be slow, but it's changing, and it keeps changing into more positive sort of outcomes. That's my take on it, and so that keeps me going.
Thanks, Christine. Jase, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Yeah, wow. Well, I thought I knew what the word meant until I met Cassandra, our team leader. That woman redefined the word enthusiasm to me in so many ways, on so many different levels. Before I knew, my team, I had no idea what the word meant. It's a word I didn't have to use. Sunrise, sunset. That was the extent of my enthusiasm for years. And then I met the most stubborn woman I ever had the pleasure of meeting, which is Cassandra, our team leader, our ex-team leader. She really opened the door to me on the possibilities. On if you believe, I said, well, I've got nothing to believe, man. She goes, well, I believe for you. She always had an answer to, and she wasn't just blowing smoke up my ass, man. She was telling me facts and truths that, hey, you're not a train wreck, you're somebody. And there's 5 other people in this room that are somebodies. You just got to start believing the word again, enthusiasm. And that's what I did. And it's like a self-propulsion propulsion engine. You give it a little belief and it just turns over, gives a little back and a little bit more. And the more you push this word enthusiasm, the more it pushes back in a kind and honest way. So while I'm enthusiastic, I learned, I believe, one of the best, and that includes my team.
Awesome. Jody?
I just wanted to reiterate that we have been together as a long time, like as a team, and you see 4 of us on a little Brady Bunch arrangement today, but there are many more of us. We need quite a large boardroom to fit us all in. But interestingly enough, we all come because we had some kind of experience of being without a home. But during the time that we have all worked together and all supported each other, every single person on our team has had at least one change to their housing accommodation and stability in that time, and all being faced with being at risk of losing that current housing situation. This is not something that stopped and started the day that we joined this team. We have all had a living experience of changing our housing, but also to all come to very frightening scenarios of where our housing has become unaffordable or unsustainable. And because we have shared so many stories and so much knowledge, we have been able to help each one in our own little way to get through those troubled times. And we have a team member at the moment that has had numerous periods of homelessness, that's living in a rooftop tent and has been for quite some time. And his strength and resilience is absolute testament to how well the right team can get you through something. And I'm talking about peer teams, and it's informal but formal, supported but unsupported. It is actually because Joel's word, the language, because we are able to talk the language without stigma and without judgment, and allow that person to still be a part of something, even though they're going through a challenging time. So I think at the raw end of this, some of our passion and determination to keep this going is to make sure that people's experiences aren't as severe the next time around, it's not as long the next time around, and it's not as frightening the next time around. That we maybe have some solutions, but we maybe have some options, a bit more than we had the last time that we went through that. And I think if we can help someone have a better life today, tomorrow, the next day, then it's well worth doing any of these types of activities to share the awareness of how tough it is.
Yeah. Let's talk about like how we take that kind of lived experience and peer support work further in the sector, because you've already spoken about the amazing difference it's made to your own lives, and I can speak on CHP's behalf of like the incredible difference you make to the work we do in here by having your insights and your passion for us to kind of collaborate with. But Claire asked the question, what changes do you think need to be made in the sector to recognise lived experience expertise as being just as valuable as other critical forms of knowledge? And related to that, what improvements do you think are needed to improve the work environment for peer support workers? Maybe I'll throw to Joel for this, since you're in that role. But before we do, just because I am aware we'll have a lot of people in the audience who are from the sector, but we'll also have some people from the general public. Maybe you can explain what a peer support worker is and does.
Yeah, so I love this topic. I could do hours of training on this topic. It is one of my passions in life to build the peer workforce in across Australia, if possible, and it has been done. So I will start with a peer support worker. In my eyes, is someone who has a lived experience. We're speaking about homelessness, but we've had peer support workers in the AOD and mental health sectors in hospital settings for many, many years, 30 plus years. Homelessness is just catching up. We've had peer support workers, I think, for roughly 6-ish years. And yeah, about 6-ish years, yeah. And a peer support worker, I believe, in my eyes, is someone who comes into a service, is employed purely based off their expertise as a lived experience expert, and comes in to utilize that lived experience to create a better environment for not only the service users in that service, but a better environment for the support workers supporting their consumers. So when I was a peer support worker, I saw my role as to be a conduit between service user and service provider. I sat right in the middle. So I would have workers, housing support workers come to me and say things like, you know, my client is really hard to speak to. We've got so much work to do. I'm not getting anything done, but somehow I see them chatting to you a lot. Can we somehow utilize that rapport you have and get some work done? Because for some reason, it's really, really hard to do any type of work with them that we need to do. And I don't actually know why as a worker. Can you help me find out why? So I, as a conduit in the middle, would go to the client. I use the word client a lot. It's just easier for me in my brain. I would go to the client and say, I had a chat to your worker. They're trying to do this work with you. You know, they can't catch you. What is that about? Like, can we explore that, you know, and have just chats about, you know, what's that about? Why aren't you speaking to your worker? I want to make this good for everyone here. What can I do? And sometimes the client will be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea that what do you mean? What's my worker trying to do? And so I was sort of like a translator sometimes, I feel like, in the middle. I'd say, your worker said this 3 times. You need to get this paperwork done by this day. And they're like, I did not even know that. And I think that goes back to Rayanne. Sorry, I don't know if I'm saying your name right in the comments, about Rayanne's comment about like the overwhelm of service information. When you're a client in a service, you just don't know all the stuff. You don't know what the workers want to do with you. You don't know anything, and your brain can't soak in that information. Your brain, you know, is in fight or flight and in survival mode, and you cannot soak in information. So I had to reiterate time after time, it's the sort of the same things, and just keep coming back and saying, okay, we need to do this. Oh yeah, I forgot. We need to do this. Oh yeah, I forgot. We've got an appointment at this day. Okay, slip letters under doors. Just keep reminding and keep chipping away at some of the walls as well that people would put up around themselves to protect themselves. So I think, in a nutshell, a peer support worker is somebody, yeah, who is sort of in the middle, employed for their lived experience expertise, and who can be there to support clients and workers to get a really good outcome for everybody involved. I think the second part of the question was, how do we support this?
Yeah, how do we better embed peer support workers and lived experience? How do we better support them in the sector?
Yeah, so I mean, because it's really new in homelessness, the language isn't there, the idea, like what is a peer support worker? Nobody really knows. So even when I was a peer support worker, I worked in a crisis accommodation and as on the Melbourne Streets to Home team in an outreach capacity. So I'd go into people's homes and meet them in the community. So we can do that as well. And to support this to happen is to know that we're valuable and we're needed. So I believe that we as peer support workers did such great therapeutic work, and as a holistic wraparound support was like I would have clients come up to me and say, can you be my worker? Can you be my support worker? Can you be my housing worker? Because and I was like, no, I'm not a housing worker. I don't do that, but I can assist with anything that you need. And that's what it was about. It was about me coming to people and saying, what do you need? What do you want? And let's try to make that happen. You know, what's the barriers to you accessing this support? What's the barriers to you seeing your worker? And you know, it was for me to do that good work, I needed support from my managers and trust from my managers to be like, okay, you're a lived experience expert, you know what you're on about, you tell us what you need, you know, what do you need? And what I needed was peer supervision. I needed to be able to go and vent to someone, just like how every other worker has supervision and goes back to their you know, line manager to chat about what happened. I needed supervision where I could go to someone who's had a lived experience and chat about, and have supervision and chat about the day and chat about, you know, like unpack some stuff about what's happening and how we can do that better. I think the peer workforce needs in homelessness needs to be recognized as valuable. It needs to be funded and it needs to be supported really well with really good supervision. And before I hand it over to Russell, I really do want to say, Cass, going by the work that she has done with us, if it wasn't for Cass and the amazing work she's done, with the way she has supervised us and supported us the past 10 years, none of us would be where we are now. It was because of that support, which is why I'm even able to sit here and talk to you today. When I first walked into CHP, I did not talk to anybody. I spoke when I was spoken to. I would not be able to chat to you the way I'm chatting to you now. And it was because Cass didn't give up on me when I was hard to reach on the phone. She figured out my communication style. She figured out, okay, this girl doesn't like to answer phone calls. She gets anxiety. If I text her, she'll text me straight back. She got to know who I was as a person and all of us as a person. And I'm not going to lie, we're people with lived experience. We come, surprise, surprise, come with a lot of baggage because we've been through some stuff. But the support she provided us, she saw that, that, you know, I just need to get to know who these people are and, you know, not give up on them. And she didn't. And she was probably one of the first, people that I had in my life, in professional or personal, to show me what a safe working relation, like what a safe person was. And that I wouldn't be judged. There would be no stigma. I could say anything. I could cry. I could be myself. I could be a person, and she would see me in my whole self, and I could come to her at any time and not be turned away or felt like I was too much or whatever. So it's the support. We need to be supported, and without that support, because Cass also was my line supervisor when I was a peer support worker. And surprise, surprise, I had 2 jobs, one with Cass as a supervisor and one without. And the one with Cass as a supervisor I had a lot better time with. So yeah, we need to be supported and recognized as equal playing field, like power dynamics, that we're not under anybody else in the workplace. We want to be treated just like anybody else. We don't want to feel othered, and that there's a power dynamic there that we need to battle with or prove ourselves that we're worthy of being in the job. Just, we might not have a bachelor, but we've got a whole lot of lived experience that we bring to the table. So
Awesome.
we build rapport in 5 minutes. So that people can't do in months. So I think peer workers is very, very valuable. But yeah, I will pass the microphone to somebody else, Jason.
Jase, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think, well, you know me, in a nutshell sort of guy, we have to be taken more seriously. Pure and simple. That's why Cassandra got results. She took us seriously, and treated us with respect we didn't even earn yet, but she saw the potential. So I think the power, decision makers or those in power to make change have to start taking people with a lived experience more seriously, because we get results, and we don't get results because we know a better way. We're just we're like an interpreter or an emissary for someone asking for help. We can provide what they're asking and give them back answers to their questions without this buffer of being judged. But you sit down with somebody who's been has experienced homeless and your peer your lived experience peer support, they know in 10 New York seconds, the path they've walked because you've walked it. How many times they've been told no. Funny, in the beginning of it, Cassandra used to ring us all up and ask us for gigs. Would you do this? Would you do that? Me, I said, I'll say yes to everything. Because I wish there was someone there to say yes, because I had the experience. I never wanted to use the word no again. Because, and you can't blow smoke up these people's asses. And you got to remember now, when these punters enter homelessness, they have no idea, like I did, about how do I ask for help when I've never been in this sort of trouble before? Like, what do you know? Well, what do you know? How can I help? How can you help? You can see it's an internal question, an external question being answered with an internal response, and they just go straight past each other. So, if we say this is a better way, fuck, take it as gospel, man.
Yeah.
On this subject, we are deadly serious.
All right, we've got 5 minutes to go. We're not going to get through all of these questions. We're going to do a couple of rapid fire ones. Gwen asks, what are some things you were tired of hearing when you disclosed your experience of homelessness? And I'm going to add a positive flip at the end of here. What is it, something you would like that somebody experiencing homelessness, what would be a constructive, helpful way for somebody to respond when they disclose to them that they're experiencing homelessness? Christine.
I'd just, for starters, to the last point, just get to know that person, build a relationship. You can't achieve anything without having a relationship with someone, and that's what Joel was talking about before. She knew how to build relationships, and then it's a matter of when it feels like the right time, you can ask the question: are you in touch with any services? Do you know where to go? That kind of thing. I think there was a first part to that question, but anyway, what was the first?
The first part was whether things you were tired of hearing when you disclosed your experience of homelessness to somebody.
Tired of hearing, yes. Well, I can't really speak to that, so I guess I'll hand it over to some other people.
If I could jump in, I guess this is just very loose because it was not exactly these words, but being told, so glad you're here today, we're going to look for a house. I think the one thing that had the positive spin for me is my housing worker actually always pretty much started the conversation with what is the biggest priority you have today that has to be done to get through to tomorrow. So even though our focus was housing aligned, she was making sure that she was looking at the other commitments and the other things I needed to survive in that time window as the biggest priority and focus. And then we'd move our way around the room and figure out how to achieve that. So I was always moving forward.
Amazing. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that one?
Oh yeah, for sure. One question that used to drive me fucking insane was, so how can we help you today? I mean, what? Wait a minute. You know, you are a homelessness access point, correct? Yeah. So I have to start going through my story again. So, you know, stupid questions, you know, like Jody said, oh, we got to look for a house today. I said, well, how about we work with the fact that, you know, I'm inside a psych unit? I never asked for help in the beginning, looking for homelessness. It was thankfully forced onto me because there was one of the release conditions from a psych unit. Oh, you need to be housed. And that's how I found out. But yeah, when you first, initial access is so important, a pinnacle point. When you say something ridiculous as, oh, so what brings you with it here today? Really? Okay, where do you want me to start? You know, or in a few words, how can we help you? I'm thinking, oh God, don't do this. Just the access point should be treated with more respect. And you know, it's suicides happen from these access points. Someone says something incredibly stupid. Just realize what you're doing and who you're talking to, and you know how we all know what they're there for help. And do we really know? We really need to know on how they got there again. We just have to read their case file. So yeah, more emphasis on IAPs.
Thanks, Jase. Steph has asked the perfect last question to wrap us up. The theme for Homelessness Week this year is homelessness action now. What's the kind of action we need right now? We've talked a lot, I guess, about what the sector can do. We've talked a little bit, Christine talked about general public building relationship, that kind of thing. So maybe this could be, what do you want from the government today? What's the message you want to give? What is the homelessness action now that you want?
6,000 houses for the next 10 years to be built. And us as a community need to support that submission by going to everybody'shome.com .org, but Everybody's Home campaign, and sign up and say, yeah, we need these 6,000 houses for the next 10 years. We do need better rental laws. We do need to keep our people in the community in safe and secure accommodation that is affordable. And as community members, we are responsible to speak to the government and get them to make that choice.
Thanks, Chris.
6,000 new houses. It's easy. Get
6,000 per year for the next 10 years.
Hell yeah! In the next 5 years. Okay. Now we're going to have to secure land for two things: homes or cemeteries, because we're at that point now. You know, it's life and death on the streets.
It is. I want to say, I want to see affordable housing framework. I want to see a national affordable housing framework. I want to see affordable housing, an actual real thing that the government cares about and speaks about and wants to discuss. I want to see an affordable housing framework. And just to answer Ruth's question quickly, because I think Ruth has an amazing question. Hi, Ruth. Interested to know what's been the most effective way you've contributed as a lived experience advocate. I would say 100% working with people like yourself in the LASNs and working with people who know their shit, like you guys, like groups like you guys who have been around way longer than us, way forever. And you guys know your stuff. And it's having you guys, like you, Ruth and Sarah, as people to look up to in the sector as mentors, to guide us. It's having you guys to contribute to our our success, is to have you to support us. So that is probably one of the it's one of the best ways that we've been able to work do co-design stuff, is working with people who know their shit. So yeah, it's you, Ruth and Sarah.
Thanks, Joel. Jody, do you have any last thought you want to give on what kind of action we need now?
Yeah, absolutely. And not stealing the thunder from anyone else, I want to go on a different tangent. I want to take our voices together with your voices to make sure that homelessness is no longer hidden. It is loud, it is confident, and it's on the conversation of anyone here in Victoria. So we can actually make change by having the community not frightened of what we're doing and what we're experiencing, and recognising it for the problem that it is, and start bringing it up into the funding sources that some of the other sectors get, and the recognition, because we are definitely making a difference in people's lives, but we're the quiet achievers. We've got to be louder. We've got to be stronger.
Christine gave that 2 hearts. I'd give it 3 if I could. I can't think of a more perfect way to end the session. Thank you to our panel, to Jody, to Christine, to Jase, to Joal. Thank you to everyone sending questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get through them all. I think for the demand of this, we probably need to do another one of these sessions soon. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. If you'd like to rewatch or share this panel later, keep an eye on CHP's social media, and we'll be posting the recording there in a little bit. Till then, enjoy the rest of your day and take care. Bye.
Thanks. Awesome.